Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome back to another premiere draft of Pioneer Masters, the arena-only Pioneer reprint set. So without further ado, let's get into the pack 1, pick 1. Pretty fine pack here. It's kind of mediocre. The uncommons aren't that exciting. When your best uncommon or rare is just like a removal spell, it's not that cool. Behold the Beyond, if you're like a really, really good control deck where you know you can tap out 7 mana without affecting the board, is probably going to win the game getting the best 3 cards in your deck, but that is a really, really narrow kind of position. So I'd rather just take a good, efficient removal spell like Draconic Roar or Dreadbore out of this pack. Boulder Salvo is definitely the weakest of these three. Sin Collector's a pretty strong card, but I don't love starting with a multicolored card pack 1, which is also what leans me towards Draconic Roar over the Dreadbore. It's just more flexible. We can play it in any red deck instead of exactly red-black. Pick 2, Scab Clan Berserker. What is this? 3 mana 2/2 haste, renown 1, so when it hits your opponent, you get a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, it deals 2 to that player. Doesn't seem horrible, but it also doesn't seem great. Honestly, I feel like the Gear Crafter is just more consistent. 3 mana for a 2/1 and a 1/1 flyer. Is there anything good off color that pushes us any direction? Not really. Gurmag Angler's fine. We could also just take Dreadbore and start moving Rakdos off that. Taking that over Gearcrafter Berserker actually seems somewhat reasonable. And then there's also Oath of Nissa, a solid green card draw spell. And then if we manage to draft any Planeswalkers, we can definitely cast them. But if we manage to draft any Planeswalkers, we're probably just going to play them anyway. Don't really need that kind of fixing. Yeah, I'll take the Dreadbore here. I don't think those red commons and uncommons were that exciting, and there really wasn't anything else off color. Now we can take Omnixus's Cruelty for super efficient removal. It's also Clear Shot. There's also Silk Wrap, so a bunch of good removal. But we've got that Dreadbore towards black, so the Cruelty in that direction as well looks good. 7 mana is quite a lot, so I'm not insanely high on Sylvan Primordial, but that is certainly a finisher. If we were anywhere near green, here's another Cruelty. Sure. Starting off this draft, the opposite of last draft, we are just guaranteed locked in on the removal spells this time around. Last draft, we had like a really sick Sultai build, but pretty mediocre removal by the end of it. I mean, through the first pack, we drafted exclusively creatures, I think, which was pretty funny. Pick 5. Scytheclaw Raptor, Undead Butler, Boundary Lands Ranger. These are all solid little options in Rakdos. We could go like Grixis Control. That could be fun. Steam Augury is like a huge card draw spell. Look at the top 5. You separate them into 2 piles. Your opponent puts one of those piles into your hand. So it's at minimum a draw 2. But because you can split the piles to 2 pretty good cards and then 3 slightly weaker cards, it's pretty consistently just about a 3-for-1 in value. I kind of like that idea, taking exclusively removal so far. Drafting some of the Grixis Guild Gates highly and trying to be a weird Grixis control deck could be pretty fun. So I'm going to take the Steam Augury here. We're going to praise Nicol Bolas, even though I don't think there's a single Nicol Bolas in the Planeswalker bonus sheet in this set. I don't think there's any Bolases, sadly. I talk about the Planeswalker bonus sheet a lot, so you might not know what's going on here, because it is a little hard to tell. Because usually bonus sheets have different artworks or a different stamp on the card, or at least a different set symbol. In this set, they are changing the bonus sheet out every 2 weeks. So one of the commons in each pack gets swapped out for something from the bonus sheet. In the first couple weeks, it's a Planeswalker-based bonus sheet. So a bunch of different Planeswalkers from Pioneer getting reprinted into that. Next week, it's going to be, or next week, a couple weeks from now, it's going to be spells. So a lot of instants and sorceries on that bonus sheet. And then the last 2 weeks of the format, the most exciting ones for me, is going to be the Devotion bonus sheet, where they have all of the Theros gods, as well as a bunch of cards that require a lot of mana of their certain colors, so that they can, God, what am I saying here? So that you can hit the devotion you need for those gods. So that's what the bonus sheets is all about. Warkite might just be a good enough value play to take that here, even if we're more controlling. If we play a bunch of Pilgrim's Eyes for fixing, this is still great value, just picking one of those up. You know what, I'll go for the Warkite. But I could also see like that Gatekeeper there, because we're probably going to want to draft a lot of Grixis Gates already. And now we have double Warkite, so we can just draft a bunch of good 3-mana creatures with great enter effects. So we just play them, chump with them, and then Warkite them back later to get value again. Pilgrim's Eye is a 3-mana 1/1 flyer. When it enters, grab a basic from your deck, put it into your hand. So play that to fix us to blue, and trade it off for chump block with it, have it come back again with Warkite, pick up another land. Pretty solid value, even if you don't need lands that bad in the late game. Just a really grindy, control-y Grixis pile. Slumguard Butcher's fine if you have good creatures to sacrifice, but I think Archaeologist or Guildgate are more consistent. I'm just going to go for the Guildgate before I grab any more blue spells. But in theory, Archaeologist gives you a nice little 0/3 blocker to soak up damage from 1/1s and 2/2s, and draws your removal spell at the same time, most of the time. So Archaeologist is fine in this kind of deck, but got to get that fixing here. Another Izzet Guildgate. We also wield the Behold the Beyond. And we're on that full control build. It is so bold to try to do that, though. Because that could easily just be stuck in our hand and we just die to aggro. Tall Crop Skirmisher is good if blue is one of our core colors where we can consistently play that on 2, trade it off, reanimate it, then it's pretty good. So if we go like blue, red, splash black instead, something like that, then Skirmisher could be good. I think Guildgate is just the safest pick here by a lot. So I'm just going to go with that. Pick 10, here's a Gear Crafter. This is another really good one for the Swift Warkite, similar to like a Pilgrim's Eye where it has a really good enter effect. Play it, trade it off, get it back with Warkite later. Seems like a good way to get a lot of blockers and slow our opponent down. Nothing much here, pick 11, so I'll speculate on a random Guildgate. I don't think this is going to be a good deck for Returned Centaur. All the really good graveyard shenanigans are in green-black, but we're definitely not going to be a Warhound deck, like forced to attack each turn. That is not where it's at. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to be a controlling, like, Grixis-y build here, but I guess we're more likely to get pushed into Rakdos aggro than we are to get pushed into some weird graveyard synergy deck. So still take that. Wheel all the Nivix Cyclopses and we could play some weird Izzet spells deck, but there's so many good black spells. Oh, let's go. That's a control finisher. I finally get to play a Planeswalker? The Planeswalker bonus sheet does not just exist for my opponents. I get to play Planeswalkers too? Yeah, this is a great control finisher. If your opponent cannot kill Jace really quick, they just mill out and die. You mill them 10 a turn. Yeah, we take Jace for sure. Wow, this pack is insane. There's a Dragon Lord Jamoka in here too. That is the only 2 colors we haven't drafted yet, so we're very safe to take Jace over that, but it is just funny to see that amount of power showing up in this pack. All right, yeah, Jace, come on in. Now we can go ahead and take that 2/4 sturdy blocker that draws us a card. We have enough gates on board. Because even in just a 3-color deck here, now that we have a good double blue card, we want to take on-color gates very, very highly already. Got some restrictive mana costs here across 3 different colors. Okay, another Obnix. This is Cruelty, looks fantastic. Counterflux is fine, but really hard to cast. Anchor to the Aether is pretty good, but I think black is more of a core color. And Anchor is better in more tempo-y decks where you're actually like getting aggressive and then slowing your opponent down with that. More controlling decks, you'd rather just exile the card if you can. Do have to take this over a Pilgrim's Eye, but cannot pass up on the really good removal. And for the same reason, we take a Dreadbore now. And I'm perfectly happy to pass up on that Gateway Plaza. I much, much prefer the 2-color gates to this one, because this one's like a double tap land. You have to skip out on 2 of your mana for the turn to play it. Not only is your land for turn entering tapped, but one of your current mana is also getting soaked into this, instead of just your land drop for turn not being useful for that turn. So Gateway Plaza is like really slow. But worth it if you're like the full 5-color. Okay. We are not a good Zulaport Cutthroat deck or a good Fall of the Hammer deck, so we have to take Devour Flesh or Boulder Salvo. I also don't think we're great at salvoing. We need to Surge for this to be efficient. So cast another creature alongside it, but I also just think Devour Flesh is quite bad. So I'll take it here. We've got some 2-3 mana removal. Just cast one of those and this on turn 5. Can be a thing. This deck looks awkward. We need to find some more good card draw to be able to keep up with casting this many 1-for-1s. This many just targeted removal spells. So we need more like Steam Augury kind of cards to get ahead in the late game. Or if we can get more like Gear Crafters for our early blockers where they could trade off and leave something behind, that also helps. Blood Tithe Harvester should be solid here, although Fight with Fire, actually, I am a huge fan of in these kind of decks. There's also a Gate Colossus. Ooh, that is quite the finisher. Also, Dimir Guildgate. Wow. Pretty sad this clumped up like this. I would have way preferred one of these over Boulder Salvo. But Blood Tithe Harvester is great. It's flexible. It's removal, card selection. The Fight with Fire is great. It's early removal. Late game, it can be a full-on board wipe or finish your opponent off. Gate Colossus is a huge finisher that is resilient because it comes back when we play a gate. And the Guild Gates are high picks for the mana fixing. I'm just going to go with Fight with Fire. I am just an astronomically huge fan of Fight with Fire in these slower decks. Because again, it's that early removal every time you need it. But if you draw it late, sometimes this completely wins you the game, just wiping your opponent's whole board. I'll take Evolving Wilds over Patrol or Salvo here. This looks like a good Selendie Vision deck, but it's also a pretty great Pilgrim's Eye deck with our double Warkite and our mana base all over. So I'm going to go for the Pilgrim's Eye over the Vision. Now, not a great one. I don't think Nimbus Cyclops is actually that good here, but I mean, it does give us an alternate game plan. Like, if we can't do the Jace thing, if we can't find some other Warkite finisher, we do have that plan if we get enough of these Cyclopses that we can just be like, have a Cyclops on board, and every time they play a creature, just kill your creature, swing 4, kill your creature, swing 4, kill your creature. I accidentally bumped the mic and muted myself when I kept saying kill the creature, swing for 4. That's embarrassing. We are definitely not a Rimrock Knight deck, even if we are going for the Nivix Cyclops game plan. So I'll take a Simic Guildgate. That we're also probably not playing. Another Gatekeepers? Nah, another Pilgrim's Eye. We don't have enough gates to want to play the first Gatekeepers already. And I kind of want to cut Gateway Plaza too. Essence Scatter's pretty nice in here. I'll take it over a 4th Cyclops. Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Devour Flesh would be like a good sideboard option in case we run up against the deck with all Hexproofers and a bunch of auras, but it's so bad in almost every other matchup. I don't like main decking it. Eidolon's also pretty bad. Technically, it works decently with Swift Warkite, but by itself, it's quite a mediocre card. Okay, what have we got here? Scatter to the Winds, right? It's the best controlling option we have. Tomebound Lich or Scatter to the Winds are both pretty good. Really like that this is a counterspell early or a 2-for-1 late, similar to a Fight with Fire, but not quite as explosive. I will take the Scatter to the Winds. All the Izzet Guild Gates. I think I need a 4th Pilgrim's Eye. Yeah, and we're not a good Soul Flayer deck. Alright. Another Izzet Guildgate, goodbye Gateway Plaza. Ginrova Horror. It's really nice. At the higher mana value, bounce something, make your opponent discard a card. I did say I need more card advantage, but both of these are 2-for-1 pieces of card advantage. This is a 3 mana draw 3. This is a 6 mana, but it's 4-4 and your opponent discards a card, so that is a 2-for-1 right there, plus the bounce to slow them down, or maybe even kill whatever you bounced if that's the only card in their hand when you bounce it. I think Horror is just really good. Excuse me, and kind of fits the bill for the 2-for-1 thing as well. Okay, well, this is our deck right now. We have 4 non-basics. This is 23 lands, 4 non-basics. We definitely want 17 lands in this deck. Even with double Pilgrim's Eye, I've got that huge fight with fire to get to and a lot of 6-drops that are pretty important. There's 2 Pilgrim's Eye for the Butcher. I suppose I also have a Gear Crafter for it. Butcher might not be horrific in here. The only options are Butcher or Gatekeepers. Again, I'm not doing great on the guild gate front. I think we'd want like 5, 6 guild gates ideally for Gatekeepers. 2 or more gates. Yeah, it's just not going to happen often at all. And I'm probably cutting Butcher. So Butcher, Gatekeepers, some of the first cuts. Windrider Patrol feels pretty high up on that list. Yeah, here's potential cuts. Maybe Boulder Salvo if we have like way more than enough removal. Which I kind of do, but I want this deck to just be completely chock full of it. We did kind of become the blue-red splash black pile, which is funny. This pack is pretty bad for us. I imagine Swift Spear is better than Gatekeepers in this deck, though. Weirdly enough. But this is another card we're going to want to cut early. Maybe Zephyr Winder's just better than Swift Spear. Just poke for 2 a turn for a while. I don't know. They're both going to be in the pile on the right. Something we'll cut pretty soon. Okay, Cutthroat is the best threat we've seen so far for just the cheap threats for this deck, because we have a lot of instants. So goodbye Gatekeepers. Hello Cutthroat, and goodbye Swift Spear. Possess Scab? Absolutely. Hello Possess Scab. Goodbye Windrider Patrol. Get that 2-for-1. Boulder Salvo is the only thing really on the chopping block now if we find better removal than that. Devour Flesh is not better removal than that. Nor is any of this. All right. Not super confident in this deck. I don't think we found as much card draw as we wanted. Having just the 1 copy of the Steam Augury is pretty rough. I could have taken that Painful Truths over the Dinrova Horror, but I do think the Dinrova Horror is genuinely just a great, great card. And it is still kind of a good 2-for-1 value play. I don't know if I'm actually playing either of these if I take them. Yeah, I'm just gonna still run the Boulder Salvo. So yeah, as I was saying, it feels very average, like a 3-3 average kind of deck, because we could easily fall behind in card advantage. We did not get multiple auguries or more draw spells like that, so we're going to be 1-for-1ing so much without a lot of 2-for-1s to bring us back into the game and get ahead after we stabilize. So going to be pretty reliant on hitting the good stuff, like the Jace or the Warkites or the Horror, to be our top end. Weaker draws in this deck could definitely just run out of gas. Like, we stop everything they do, but then we get into a top deck where it's like, well, anytime they hit a creature, we're just losing from there. So an awkward little Grixis control deck here. Still a pretty cool, pretty unique one, so I am happy to have drafted it, but I am a little concerned for how well it is going to play. We'll see. So we have 9 black cards, 12 red, and 10 blue. So maybe this is right. 7 red, 6 blue, 6 black. Blue has some double blue cards, though, so I'd rather go like 5 black, 7 blue, and 7 red here. I don't have any double red until I'm kicking things way late in the game. Do another mount for another island. And then that looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll run the mana base like that, call it a deck here, hop into the gameplay, and see how it does. Here we are for game 1. This is a fine start. We have great mana and some efficient removal for whatever they start with. Second blue source for our double blue spells off of our Evolving Wilds. Uh-oh. I do not like our matchup against the Gates deck, because they're going to have mostly big, massive creatures and card draw plays, so all of our early removal 1-for-1s are just not going to end up playing well in the long run. I'd rather not reveal this dragon. I don't think the 3 damage is going to matter. One of us is just going to get really far ahead in the long game in this matchup. If we hit our Jace should be really good in this matchup. Uh-oh, please don't have a way to save that. Just get slaughtered by this ram if they have Mizium skin. Wow. Pretty perfect. That is rough. I guess I should have poked for one. Yeah, the 5-color deck has the 1 blue hexproof trick at the right time. Well, we're not dying how I thought we would. Instead, we are just flooding out here. Once again, I could just poked for one. Still have a lot of removal in this deck that can kill that. We've got like double Dreadbore. Dinrova Horror next turn can slow it down. This is some really bad draws. It's just the saddest way to end it. This was already not a matchup I was super confident in, so we draw like this and we are going to get absolutely rolled as we have. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we could have a decent shot at like a best of 3 against this deck because we've got like the double Dreadbore, Scatter, Essence Scatter, and Scatter to the Winds kind of removal. Omniscious's is Cruelty on the Ram when it's small enough. Cruelty also kills Bane, but this draw just doesn't get there. I Augury, they just put the important pile in the grave. I mean, I guess. It's the tiniest chance I hit really well on the Augury, and that is not hitting really well. Whatever pile of Fight with Fire goes in goes to my grave. These cards don't save me on board. And we move on. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 2. All of our colors getting set up real quick. Let's make sure that Essence Scatter is up. Playing against Rakdos, I will scatter that. It's going to deal a lot of damage to me over time if I don't, because I have no more removal in the hand. And then I immediately hit Draconic Roar. That is just how it goes. Mainly just getting an untapped land there off Pilgrim's Eye. Doesn't really matter the color too much. We've got triple blue, triple red, double black. Okay, I will roar the Husk before they have enough stuff to make it any bigger. Scytheclaw Raptor, that's a pretty good target for the Roar, so I'll go ahead and scab up the Roar here over scabbing up the Scatter. So you just scab up the Scatter and then they just cast their good 5-drop while I'm tapped out anyway. Dreadbore the Scab, sure. And then we'll roar the Raptor. If I draw non-lands, I am theoretically getting ahead in cards off of the Scab 2-for-1. Okay, Boros Reckoner is completely devastating. And it is super lethal. God, there's just so many lands here that all I have is a Warkite with no card engrave. Alright. Time to get reckoned with. Coordinated assault. Yep, that works. There's the cruelty for the Reckoner. Taking 3 a turn. We're on a 4-turn clock. They need +3 toughness to keep it around, which is not easy to get in Rakdos. Boros does have a +3/+3 kind of thing. Yeah, Boulder Rush does not do it. Would have been nice earlier. But here again, they can probably just get rid of the only relevant card. Wow. Yeah, they can pretty easily do that. I guess I'm getting a Cyclops pile. Oh, they're gonna give me the cruelty. Interesting. Well, doesn't seem horrible. I mean, I guess either pile is kind of the same thing. Yep, there's the slash for the eye. They've got a 3/1 on board. We're dead in 3 turns. Soul Flare. 4/4 no text, but it doesn't matter when all you have is lands. That is 0 and 2. Some very, very similar, very floody losses. We are only on a 17 land deck, but we do have the double Pilgrim's Eye. I don't think we cut to 16 just because the Pilgrim's Eyes. I think these are just rough draws. Yeah, it feels sketchy to go down to 16. We've got multiple really important 6-drops in this deck, as well as a fight with fire for 9, potentially. Is what it is. We are 0 and 2 heading into game 3. This hand looks pretty legit. The Gearcrafter and the Scab both potentially being little minor 2-for-1s. I'm gonna Evolving Wilds right now to lower our chance of flooding out again. Just thin a land out of the deck immediately. Undead Butler from our opponent. Oh lord, it milled 2 different really strong rares. This makes everyone always discard their hand in the end step. This keeps tapping things and stunning things. Terrifying graveyard from our opponent. honestly would not be surprised if I'm supposed to just exile this so they can't pick things up from grave. Because those graveyard cards are so bad for me. Darksteel Ingot. This looks kind of like the mirror match, except they have a bunch of rares that I don't. That is probably another like big factor pulling this deck down in power level, is you kind of do need some big bombs to play more controlling decks in Modern Limited. And they have a million of them. Oh my god. Yeah. Reanimate one with haste lifelink. Just slam me with it. Gain a million. Good lord. Okay. Exile it at the end step. Okay, so they only get the one swing out of it. It does cost them 4 mana. Really don't think I outrace that, but I can try. That is my best bet. I mean, they're pretty low already. Cyclops can get really big. This is only sorcery too, right? Okay, it's only sorcery, so we should be fine. Okay, alright. We definitely outrace them if they just don't even use the whip, then they're just dead. Whew, dodged some bullets there with some crazy bombs, and we find our first victory with this deck. We are 1-2 now. At least we're not in the 0-3 garbage bin. Alright, here we are for game 4. Definitely a mulligan. That is a lot of non-blue colors. Probably should mulligan, but I mean, I can scatter to the winds and then play a Jace, and I'm gonna hope that's enough. I'm gonna keep the cruelty, so if we hit the black source, we have a removal spell to protect Jace. Ooh, please be a slow deck. Guildgate. Let me just resolve a Jace and mill you out before you play a big bomb. We've got the Pilgrim's Eye for the cruelty now. Yeah, it's a full-on Gates deck. Oh, I've already got this one. Well, too bad. I'm playing Pilgrim's Eye anyway. Guarantee I have 5 mana by turn 5, and then I can scatter what they play next turn instead. I don't think I have anything that needs double red, so I'm just going to keep getting blue mana. Because I've got both my double blue cards. Being able to, like, play a cheap blue spell and a scatter in the same turn could be relevant. One Mangly boy. If they don't cast anything for me to scatter this turn, then I will exile that. Although now I've got a Gear Crafter, but exiling the Scavenge card feels good enough to hold up the counter this turn. Counter or exile. Oh no, they're just green-black? They're just running Gateway Plaza anyway? Sure. Pass turn. Hold up a Doomblade or something. Thank you. So they're going to need another Haster. I'll probably just hold Pilgrim's Eye up, because if Jace resolves, then we're winning by mill. We're not winning by damage anyway. Awkward part here is that green-black actually is a self-mill archetype, so they might not mind that we're milling them right now, but they will mind on the 3rd time this is triggered. If this happens 3 times, they just die. Jace is just like, pretend it's an enchantment that's just 5 mana. It says, if this sticks on the board for 3 turns, you win. But if you take 4 damage, you have to sack it. Oh, they're Johned. Okay, that explains the Gateway Plaza then. Oh, Mist Cutter Hydra would have been nasty. Again, I'm just holding the Pilgrim's Eye up because if Jace is around, we're just winning on mill. We do not need to be dealing any damage here, so keeping the Pilgrim's Eye up makes it so if they have another one of these Dreg Manglers, we're more likely to keep the Jace around. Plus, now that we know that they're red, That means there's other haste creatures they could have. So Crawl Harpooner has hit the board. We can Dreadbore that and still have a scatter up. That feels like the play. They double creature here, it's pretty good for them. Can't kill both and hold up scatter. But they don't have double creature. Dreadbore that. I guess if there's some weird redirect in this format, they could redirect that to Jace. So maybe I'm supposed to mill before I cast that, just in case they kill Jace before I have the opportunity to activate him.
I know what to do.
Alright, they have 7 cards left. One more Jace activation and the game is over. Nantuko Husk, sure. All I need is Jace to be on the board during my turn. It's okay if they untap with a Husk, because they will die before they can attack with it. They die in the draw step. And there's the concession from our opponent. We got to do the Jace thing in one game, and we won that one game. We are 2-2 now, heading into game 5. In for a penny, in for a pound. No red source, but we have a plan once again. Okay, this is going to be a way worse hand against, like, Boros. Selesnya, still weaker than last game, but not the worst matchup in the universe. We've drawn no lands so far, our first couple draw steps. So we're still looking. Probably have to be mana efficient here, just cruelty this Trailblazer. Yeah, scatter their next thing. They just want to shelter it? Sure, can have a 1/5. So cruelty their shelter. Works too. It's a reasonably good deal. Hopeful Eidolons. They get the counter on that no matter what, but I can counter the lifelink they're stacking onto it. It's pretty bad for me, though. The 2/6 body is going to be hard to deal with. We need our Dreadbores. Now I can double spell with Roar and Salvo, which does 7 damage, and that is now like 10 toughness. Jesus Christ. I mean, a Dreadbore is still an insanely good draw, but now it's Dreadbore or bust. If we don't draw Dreadbore, we just lose to this Trailblazer, which is pretty funny. We have 2 Dreadbores. I think we have some other non-Dreadbore card that would work. Okay, that works, but I have to 2-for-1 myself, so it's not great, but kind of have to. Oh no, a Hexproofer? We get full boggled? Yeah. We get full boggled. They have another aura, Jace just immediately dies anyway. But at least I draw a card. If I Warkite and they have another aura, they hit me for like 5, but at least I have a blocker for Jace before I play Jace. I mean, what are the odds of me hitting like a creature to reanimate with the Hellkite anyway? Got the 2 Pilgrim's Eyes and the Gearcrafter and the triple Cyclops. They're not horrible, but I'm just going to get the Hellkite down first so I know I have protection for Jace. Okay, at the start, this looked like a better matchup for us than like if we played against a really aggressive Boros deck. But then they slammed down the Hexproofer, and now it's like, okay, I mean, we just can't beat Hexproof. Yeah. All right. Boggles are good. This is 5 power, so if they have absolutely nothing, if they stop hitting gas, we can double block. They will never stop hitting gas. Now I have to chump here. Cool. 2 and 3 it is. Hexproof is still really strong if you can get the powerful auras to back it up. It's a little hard to do that in the format, as I've said during the draft. There's not a lot of like really efficient cheap auras to slap on. You know, a lot of 4 mana is like the cheapest you can get. 5 mana. Boon Satyr's probably the best one to throw on your Hexproofers, honestly. They downshifted this from rare, and it actually is pretty great. On the Hexproofers. +4/+2 for 5 mana is a pretty good deal. But yeah, outside of that, it's like 4 mana +2/+2s. So you do have to put work into getting the Hexproof things going. But if you get it going, it's just unstoppable against a control deck like this, where it's like we just don't have big enough creatures to trade into this. So it's just the worst case scenario for us, best case scenario for them, where we just have targeted removal like Dreadbores and stuff we can draw into. And that doesn't work at all. But your average really aggressive deck could still try to stack up a multi-block on it and get something done that way. All right, 2 and 3. Obviously, not what we would hope for. Certainly a pretty bad run overall, but that's about what I'd expect from this deck. Again, I said average probably around 3 and 3. We got a little below average here, but we got 2 losses out of the way immediately just due to some pretty severe flood right off the bat. But as I said during the draft, this is the kind of deck that is a little extra prone to flood because it has so many 1-for-1 removal spells. If we get into a top deck war, we have to draw quite a bit better than our opponent to get ahead in that position. So, yeah. Went for the fun kind of Grixis control-y nonsense pile, and it really didn't work out too well. There was the one game we really won off of Jace. That was pretty sweet. I do think that this is definitely a plan for these more controlling decks, and if it weren't for the Hexproofy threat, we were close to trying to get the Jace down. They just had one too many threats for us to deal with there in that final battle. But you really want to have multiple, like, really bomby threats like the Jace to pay off in the end game once you have stabilized and dealt with all your opponent's early threats. And the other thing that I talked about a lot, gotta have some more card advantage here. Otherwise, you just run out of 1-for-1 removal spells and counter spells and stuff, and run out of things to do. Run out of cards while your opponent is still slamming down some small threats, and that is what happened a lot at 2 and 3 for today's draft. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.